What was a house rule you had as a kid that you thought was completely normal until you grew up and realized not all households followed? Deleted. If I got hurt doing a certain activity, I wasn't allowed to do that activity again. My mother ended that rule though when I broke my wrist snowboarding when I was 16 and didn't tell her until a month later when I couldn't move my wrist at all and it required surgery with a bone graft to repair. We weren't allowed to eat anything without first asking. Even a glass of water. We were required to ask first when my boyfriend and I started dating. I would ask his parents if I could eat or drink something if I was hungry or thirsty, and it was a hard habit to break when his mom told me I could literally eat or drink anything other than the alcohol. It was so weird to just go into the fridge or pantry without permission. I sometimes have to fight the urge to ask my BF if I can eat our food in our apartment. When I went to my parents' house over Christmas, I was reprimanded for getting an apple without asking first. It's just all so weird, but it used to be so normal. My parents would check my and my brother's teeth for sugar bugs every night after we brushed our teeth before we got in bed. If they thought we were trying to skip brushing our teeth, they would tell us they could see the sugar bugs in our teeth and would make us go brush again. My brother and I were so convinced these sugar bugs were real, we would constantly ask when we'd be able to see them. My parents always told us only people 13 and older could see them. But by the time we got to be 13, we had completely forgotten about the sugar bugs in our teeth. I love thinking about creative parenting tactics like this. I've even used that one while babysitting a fussy kid who doesn't want to brush their teeth, get ready for bed, and it helps a lot. I wasn't allowed to take a shower if I was home alone. I also learned at age 7 that other households closed the bathroom door when using the toilet and keeping it open was weird. I learned that by keeping the door open at a friend's house. A friend walked by the bathroom, saw me, told their mom. Their mom called my mom. And all of a sudden the new house rule was we close the bathroom door when using the toilet. Any of the kids, 7 of us, can play with any toy that is left out. The owner of the toy can't take it back until whoever's playing with it is done. If the toy is put away in the owner's room, permission must be asked. If you couldn't find something, and you asked someone for help, sibling or parent, and they found it for you, they got to punch you in the arm. Monsieur. Tape half the house off in winter. Wakey time. No noise annoying mom and dad until 7 a.m. Monsieur. This was a really necessary one. I was a very early riser as a kid and I loved to talk to my parents. The rule was that I could come to their bed and curl up next to them. But I couldn't talk until 7. It was actually really nice, and made sure I got enough rest myself. Tragically, once I started rowing like 7 years later, Mom and Dad had to get up at 4 anyway to get me to the sheds. Sorry guys. Not a rule, but still to this day I am befuddled at my mother's reasoning. When I was a boy we lived in a pretty rural part of Mexico. Horrible infrastructure. Power would often go out in the middle of the night. She would proceed to wake my brother and I up, simply to wait until the power came back on. For the life of me I cannot figure that out. She wasn't afraid of the dark. She just wanted to make sure we saw the power return. Edit asterisk. Everyone keeps suggesting because of fire reasons, and come to think of it, that actually makes a lot of sense. It's actually how we lost that house. Maybe my mother is clairvoyant. First thing upon coming in the house you have to change into clean pants and wash your hands. Guests were exempt from the pants rule but not hand washing. If you took your shoes off while you were out you had to change your socks as well. My mom freaks out about hearing commercials on TV. The second it goes to commercial break it has to be muted. She also mutes it if she thinks it's about to go to commercial. Even though sometimes she's wrong, and she doesn't really pay attention. So she doesn't notice a lot of the time when the commercials are over, so she leaves it on mute when the show is back on. It's very difficult to watch TV with her. No swearing, which includes the obvious as well as stupid, idiot, shut up, and fart. When I got in trouble, I was put on reading restriction as a punishment. I loved to read as a kid. Still do. So it was an effective punishment at the time. If I told my parents I was leaving at a certain time, I had to leave at that time. Let's say I told my parents I would leave a party at 9. I couldn't leave at 8:50, or I'd get yelled at, grounded. I couldn't leave at 9:10, or I would get yelled, grounded. Same thing went for when I was leaving my house to go somewhere. We weren't allowed to walk in our dining room unless we were using the room for a special occasion. The carpet always had that just vacuumed look, so it was a dead giveaway if anyone walked across. It wasn't in my home, but my aunt and uncle never let us use the upstairs washroom when we were kids, because they thought we'd touch the walls with our dirty hands, so they made us piss in a jar they kept under the kitchen sink and just poured it down the drain when we were done. Never thought it were strange until I brought it up to my cousin a few years ago. We laughed pretty hard about it. My mom used to pay me to be my own babysitter between the ages of 10 to 14 or so. The rule was that as long as I didn't make a mess and I'd put myself to bed by the time she got home, then I got $10 in the morning. My parents used a laissez-faire parenting style. No censorship whatsoever. I watched Rocky Horror Picture Show with my brother when I was 7. Pretty awkward when I brought the VHS with me to a sleepover at a friend's house. The parents were mortified. My family had a thing we called the food blanket. When we'd eat casual meals, we'd lay a blanket on the living room floor and eat on it. Like a picnic. My parents didn't want to get any food on the carpet. Instead of set the table, my mom would say, "Go lay out on the blanket." I remember being really confused when I learned every family didn't have a food blanket.